Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show, the last edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show this week. As tomorrow, there are no scheduled NBA games. We will have, for premium subscribers behind the paywall, we will have content geared towards the Christmas Day slate, and we'll release that most likely Friday evening, including a live show with myself and Andrew Wiggins as well. But we're here to talk injuries, Mike. It's an 11-game slate. Only one game was postponed due to COVID, health and safety protocols, Brooklyn and Portland. So full slate of games, a lot of teams in action. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Ready for the off day tomorrow. Put it to you that way. But
a couple off days.
Yeah, right.
A couple off days for the content team. Christmas Eve and Christmas generally. So
yeah, looking pretty good. Looking for no basketball for a day and just chilling.
Awesome. Well, let's get to it. Let's start with kind of COVID health and safety protocols. In terms of new additions and, new subtractions as well, it's actually been a fairly mild day. A lot of the news that's come out recently has been about like Chicago, who cleared everybody from health and safety protocols, but they're not on the slate today. So in terms of new additions to the health and safety protocols list, who are we monitoring today that we will no longer have in action tonight?
Yeah, it's the daily thing now. You wake up and you're wondering who's going to be first. But yeah, we found out yesterday, I talked about a little bit on 3Ball, that Cade Cunningham is on the protocols. We saw them sign Check Diallo, and you knew someone would be on protocol for cutting someone. They had no reason to. But so we've got, my God, this is a mess. Josh was working on the minutes, and I was checking it out. It's a real tough situation to read because we know Dwayne Casey, he – more than anybody in the NBA, he loves when a starter's out to pull a third unit / non-rotation guy, put him in the mix, and then keep your second unit stable. So, honestly, they might just start Josh Jackson, throw him in there, eat minutes, but then again, they like secondary ball handling. So I think, and it makes a lot of sense to me, which sounds kind of crazy, but start Corey Joseph, in that spot. Basically, they started him with Cade, but you'd be starting
for Killian Hayes.
Yeah, so I think that kind of makes sense, and that rotation was pretty clean. So I think it's so basically the bottom line is Corey Joseph's minutes are pretty safe. Saban Lee's minutes are a little bit safer. Frank Jackson's also questionable, so they've got that wrench thrown in the situation. It's messy, man. We'll get more information as we go, but we know Saddiq Bey's role is going to be massive here. Dwayne Casey's been putting the ball in his hands more, now taking Cade's usage and ball handling out. Could be a huge spot for Saddiq Bey.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of room for secondary Detroit players. Tough spot, 98 implied total tonight, 11.5 point underdogs going into Miami. So really tough spot for them, but there will certainly be some opportunities when you remove Cade Cunningham from the list. Who else are we going to be missing from protocols tonight?
Yeah, well, we got one protocol, one illness, and it's the Pelicans. It's two major pieces. We got Valanciunas. He is out for a non-COVID illness, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker is in the protocols now, so they're likely to miss him for 10 days, although Shams had reported they could cut that quarantine time down. So, yeah, you're just starting with Valanciunas. What a big piece to take out, A, usage, and B, minutes. They're real thin, so it's going to be a lot of Billy Hernan-Gomez. I'm assuming they're calling Jackson Hayes up from Birmingham. Haven't actually checked that, but I assume they have. But yeah, they're going to go smaller. Willie Green said on Monday that they were looking for spots to kind of use that small ball Herb. They were going to use it with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, so it'll probably get Trey Murphy in the mix for a bigger role. Maybe they bring Gary Clark in the rotation out of the blue. We'll see, but I don't think so. But Garrett Temple's minutes should be pretty safe. They use Thomas Satoransky. They'll build their rotation with a little bit of guards here. And opponent-wise, they play Orlando. So Freddie Gillespie and those guys.
It's a pretty easy guy to go small against.
Yeah, exactly.
He has a lot of length and athleticism, but not a lot of width and not a lot of post presence or anything like that. So it's a very easy situation that if they wanted to play like Brandon Ingram center minutes or different things, or Josh Hart center minutes or things like that, they could certainly get away with it. They are getting Orlando on the second night of back-to-back. Orlando played pretty well last night. But yeah, this sets up to be just a great spot for Willie Hernan-Gomez, who's been super efficient whenever he's gotten opportunities from a fantasy perspective throughout the last 5-6 years, and should be able to step into that Valanciunas role in terms of playing, upper 20s, low 30s minutes, commanding a ton of usage because Hernan Gomez is a guy that also can command a lot of usage. And I think they just kind of slide him right into that role. It'll funnel some extra possessions to Devontae Graham and Josh Hart and Ingram. But I really think the benefit for those guys is going to be when they're staggered away from Hernan Gomez and you get into either Jackson Hayes or the small lineups, because those guys are lower usage rate guys that won't soak up as many possessions. So I think like early in the game, you'll see things look very similar to the way that they look normally for New Orleans. And then I think as the game unfolds, you'll see things change in terms of, Brandon Ingram picking up a little bit of usage or Josh Hart picking up rebounding rate or these different things in these second units, because Jackson Hayes doesn't use nearly as many possessions as Willie Hernan Gomez and Jonas Valanciunas, and they also have the ability to potentially go small here too.
Yeah, I think Herb's going to play a lot. You've seen a couple spots when Herb's minutes dip a little bit, but I think you can get a really heavy workload today, just going smaller and building your rotation that way.
Yeah. Let's talk about, we talked about Orlando, who is coming off a win against the Hawks. Let's talk about the Hawks in terms of what we saw from them last night. Mm-hmm. They, this Bogdan Bogdanovic thing where he was not starting was confusing. Came out after the game that he had a minutes limit of 16 to 20. He played 22. So they tried to stretch it at the end because it was kind of a game that was within reason. And obviously the Hawks are off to a tough start this year. So they're trying to get any games that they can. They started Skylar Mays, who ended up only playing 9 minutes in the night on the whole, which was just like super, super disappointing for a guy that has been with the team the longest of all these, 10-day guys that have kind of come in, or G League guys. Like Skylar Mays played last year for the team when they were in dire situations. So really disappointing performance and opportunity from him. You saw Lance Stevenson step into a low 20s role. You also saw kind of the center minutes handled with Gorgie Jang at 23, Okongwu at 19, leaving 6 center minutes for John Collins, which was kind of what we expected. But look at the John Collins, Cam Reddish, DeLon Wright minutes. Woo, boy. About 40 for all 3 of those guys. And I think that is a strong signal that, they view these 3 guys as different than the rest of the guys in terms of their capability of contributing to winning basketball right now.
Yeah. Usually hear Nate McMillan. He was not happy, obviously, he was that Orlando team, but he talked about Cam Reddish getting into a rhythm offensively, and he really carried the offense, man. I mean, just the usage was really good. DeLon Wright was really bad in the first half, was really kind of corner standing, not doing a lot of offense. It was really just Cam Reddish getting some rebounds, or a big getting a rebound, giving it to Cam and getting in the offense really quick. He really put a huge impact on the game on the offensive side of the ball. Got to expect it to happen again. And they talked about that, the perimeter players that have been with the team, DeLon, Cam Reddish, Bogdan, it's their job to integrate the new guys. So probably expecting more minutes from Bogdan. We'll see. Probably have some sort of cap, but as you mentioned, you're getting that longer leash later in the game. Probably starting. I mean, you're going to play. You're not going to play Skylar Mays after you play him 9 minutes, I feel like.
They could. You never know. You could go back to the guy and try to show him a vote of confidence. It depends on Bogdanovic. It depends on what their minutes limit is. If it's even worse on a back-to-back, I don't know. So we'll see. They're big underdogs in Philly, another team with a sub 100 implied total. So not a place that you're super excited to attack because there's blowout risk, and we could see a lot of Sharif Cooper playing down, in the fourth quarter and different things like that. I will say with DeLon Wright, was very disappointed in the role in terms of, as you said, a lot of corner standing, which I was okay with when he's sharing the floor with Cam Reddish and they're running all these dribble handoff stuff for Cam Reddish to get him kind of turning the corner and into they basically effectively pick and rolls with these dribble handoffs. And I think that was good offense. But when they were taking the ball out of DeLon's hands for Lance Stevenson, I thought that was a disaster. And I hope that I just hope that they don't do that. The problem with DeLon is he is so passive, just naturally. He's just a really, really passive player. And so he kind of turns it on when he thinks they need to. And he did early in the fourth quarter to try to bring them back into it. He went a couple putbacks in a row and different things like that. But man, it's frustrating because I think he's so much more skilled than what he plays to, because I think he plays way, way too passively.
And we lost the bet of having someone get ruled out during the game. It's Trevor Ariza. He's out for protocols now. So they just played the Suns, who, please, don't get the Suns sick for Christmas. But, do you want to just hit that right now? Because that's pretty noteworthy.
Yeah, we can. On the Lakers side, Ariza got to high teens, low 20s minutes in terms of his first 2 appearances. They have enough bodies to like make all this work now. So I think from a DFS perspective, it's really not that impactful. They can play Rondo, Thomas, Carmelo, Ellington, like they have all these guys now. So from a DFS perspective with the Lakers, you're almost always only concerned about LeBron, Russ, AD. And when one of them's out, you get concerned about the other 2. And that's been the case with AD. So we can talk through the rotation and how it impacts things. But from a DFS perspective, I don't expect it to open up value or anything like that.
Well, it probably puts Dwight in the rotation because that takes, a big chunk of that small ball lineup. We know they really lean into that Melo, Ariza, LeBron stuff. So that kind of would help him. We saw Dwight was available, but they were worried about his conditioning. So he probably sneaks in there a little bit too, on top of what you said.
Yeah, and I think the rest is just kind of spread out among I mean, they only played 15 true center minutes last game against Phoenix, which shockingly did not go very well.
Right.
So we'll see how they adjust to playing San Antonio tonight with Jakob Poeltl, who is, sort of a similar offensive role to Ayton, like big screener, go up and get a lot of offensive boards. Obviously not the post-up game that Ayton has or the little pick and pop stuff that Ayton has, but similar body in terms of dealing with. And so we'll see if the Lakers change their tune after DeAndre Jordan was negative 26 in last game.
Yeah, so that's kind of my point is like Dwight conditioning just grab their minutes because the DeAndre minutes are just useless at this point. But actually, whatever worse than useless is, that's what they are.
They're quite bad. Okay, let's talk about the Golden State Warriors, who seemingly it's like a slow drip, right? Like one day, each day we get one more guy into health and safety protocols as we all hold our breath that Steph stays out of health and safety protocols so we can all have at least Steph for Christmas. But today it was Damian Lee. And so now you've got no Jordan Poole, no Damian Lee, no Andrew Wiggins. It's a lot of wings. It's a lot of 2s and 3s that are out. The Warriors have a ton of them. And as we saw last game, without Poole and Wiggins, they went to Kuminga and Damian Lee in the starting lineup, which were kind of what we talked about. We thought they'd lean on the younger guys. They wouldn't necessarily extend Andre Iguodala and Otto Porter Jr. a ton. Then what happened is Kuminga gets hurt in the first quarter, and they have to extend Iguodala and Otto Porter Jr. a ton. So you get to see Otto Porter Jr. get up to 29, Iguodala get up to 24. I do not think that is the plan. And we'll see tonight if Kuminga can stay healthy. He's good to go. I expect he'll get another crack at starting. Do you have any differences of opinion in terms of who starts tonight in those Kuminga and Damian Lee spots?
I mean, I think it has to be Moses Moody.
Yeah.
Like unless they kind of go off the board with Downton, then it has to be. Like I was doing the minutes and like, I mean the backcourt they have like no other unless it's Downton.
It could be Gary Payton.
Yeah, I think they like him off the bench.
I agree, but I'm just like it could be in that scenario. But I think it's also going to be Moody, who didn't play much last game. But I think essentially the way the Warriors view this is when we have Steph and Dre out there and Looney, like we can be good enough offensively and defensively to play whoever we want. But when we get into the second units, we need to keep kind of some of our better second unit players together to generate offense because now we've lost Wiggins and Poole to anchor those lineups. And so I think that's why Otto Porter Jr. will stay off the bench because they need someone to generate offense. I think that's why Bielitsa's role is more safe and secure without Wiggins and Poole because he can create offense. And so I think if you think about how they're grouping these guys, I think they like Looney, Dre, and Steph together, and I think they like Bielitsa, Iguodala, Porter together. And then I think you kind of mix and match the pieces from there. And so I think the best way to go about this would be Kuminga and Moses Moody in the starting lineup. And that would, create basically another showcase opportunity for their young guys, which I think is important for their development, but also important around a future trade deadline where the Warriors are title contenders this year. And so I think that's the route that we'll likely see tonight against a Memphis team that's been playing very well defensively.
Yep.
Okay. From the Warriors to Philadelphia, Danny Green in the health and safety protocols. So, I mean, Philadelphia's injury report has been so frustrating throughout the year. So I never even know what to touch on and what to talk about with them. But their wings, their 2s, 3s, and 4s are really, really thinned out through health and safety protocols. So you've got no George Niang, you've got no Shake Milton, you've got no Danny Green. There's still a lot of room for Tybal. They will get Korkmaz back theoretically because he's not on the injury report. That has not meant that guys come back for Philadelphia this year. Same with Tyrese Maxey. But Danny Green, 40 minutes last game. Good Lord. Like, I mean, look at that rotation. It's barely a rotation. Yeah. So how do you think Danny Green's absence impacts things for Philadelphia tonight?
I think it's pretty straightforward. You're basically turning Tyrese Maxey into Danny Green, and then you're moving Seth Curry, who started at the point, back to the wing. So that kind of just is, it's a snap. I think we'd probably see a little bit of Henry. They played Henry, Bassey, and Powell together with Tobias a little bit in the second unit. That was interesting to see that rotation wrinkle there. But I think it's pretty straightforward. You're basically just putting Shake in there. I'm sorry, I should Shake again. Tyrese Maxey. Shake's out for protocols. Sorry.
Yeah. And while we were talking about Golden State, I mistakenly referenced Iguodala, who's out tonight as well.
Yeah.
In terms of like Iguodala, I think he just kind of gets replaced by JTA, Juan Toscano Anderson, in terms of like the role, in terms of like facilitating, like jack of all trades kind of guy. So going back to that Golden State conversation, just replace Iguodala with JTA, and like JTA, Bielitsa, Porter Jr., I think is like a combination that they'll be very comfortable with in the second unit.
Yep.
Okay. Talking about now Washington. We haven't talked a lot about Washington. They've actually been a team that's been largely unscathed so far through the health and safety protocols, like rampage that we've had over the league. Yeah. And so now you get Kentavious Caldwell-Pope out. You get potentially Rui Hachimura back, although he's listed as questionable with conditioning, which, as we've seen, is usually guys have to get off of that questionable with conditioning tag to like actually play. And so I think Rui might just be like an emergency type situation tonight. But with KCP's absence, we have seen them play without different guards this year. Not really him. We've seen them play without Dinwiddie. We've seen them play without Beal. How do you think they replace Kentavious Caldwell-Pope?
Yeah, so just with Rui really quick, there were some quotes from Unseld that made me seem like he's not really just bringing him along for the trip to kind of like grow his progression. They're saying they hope they dress him. So this is after KCP got rolled out. And then tying that to the fact that there are two guys got interviewed for pressers yesterday, Unseld and Denny Avdia. So you'd think that Denny Avdia, who kind of is a little bit bigger, but role, is pretty similar to what KCP brings to the table. We've seen them start him in the Kyle Kuzma stuff. So it seems pretty simple to me that they would start that spot, bring Cody Kispert in off the bench, basically be Avdia in that spot. A little bit more Howell Neto. Don't think Aaron Holiday's role changes too much, maybe just a couple more minutes there. But bringing Kispert and elevating Denny Avdia are probably the two easy moves here.
And elevating Denny Avdia to the starting lineup there should also probably help Bertans a little bit too, right? Like just in terms of, only played 8 minutes in that game against the Jazz. Surprise win on the road for Washington there. But I think that's a spot where you could see Bertans' minutes get back into the teens. It will require Rui not playing, I think, because if Rui plays at all, I think it's like short bench rotations that take immediately from Davis Bertans would be my guess.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about some returns on the health and safety protocol side of things, because on the Knicks, we get RJ Barrett and Obi Toppin back into the mix. And all of a sudden, the Knicks have bodies that they can play. I don't know if it will change how Tom Thibodeau goes about things, because I think they're still going to play like a pretty tight, like 8-man rotation. I just think the 8 guys that they're going to use, they're going to have a little bit more confidence in than what they've been doing in the past. So basically with Obi Toppin back, they lost Nerlens Noel, so they kind of just like swapped those two out. But with RJ Barrett back, you have a lot of minutes that you can soak up, assuming RJ Barrett doesn't have any minutes limits or restrictions or anything like that. We've scaled him down a little bit compared to the Kemba Walker, Alec Burks, Julius Randle type group, just because we want to see if there's any reconditioning issues. But basically, I think this is pretty straightforward. Kemba's going to play a lot. Alec Burks is going to play a lot. Fournier, Barrett, Randle, those 5 guys are all going to play a lot. And then you'll have also Mitch step into the starting lineup. I think he'll have a nice minute ceiling potentially, but I do think they'll be wanting to get minutes for Obi Toppin at the center spot. Now that they can't play Randall as much at the 3 because they've got Barrett there. So I think it's going to be a spot where Obi Toppin kind of, sneaks some minutes as a backup 5, or Randall, depending on how you're looking at those lineups. And Taj Gibson goes to the backup center role, and him and Mitch combine for, I don't know, like 44 center minutes, something like that, is how I'm thinking things work. But I expect a tight rotation. I just think the main guys for New York are no longer like 40 plus and maybe like 35, 34, 36, somewhere around there.
Yeah, just to add, so Barrett was out basically the minimum 10 days, got put on the 12th, and they cleared him. So we don't know. I don't know if he's symptomatic. And this is also really the first time we've seen Tip. They're going to have a bunch of guys coming back, but this is really the first opportunity we're going to see guys returning from COVID protocols. And then the other part of this is, like, does Kemba come off the bench now? Because when Kemba got benched before all this COVID stuff happened, it was to play the Burks, Fournier, Barrett backcourt perimeter group. So Tibbs did say they want to play Kemba now that obviously he said that pretty much knowing Rose is going to be out. So I do think Kemba kind of gets to the mix. I mean, they really like Burks in the starting unit, so I think Kemba maybe.
Yeah, I think those guys are still going to play a lot, regardless of who starts. Like I think they're going to get into the 30s. I do think we'll have to drop one of them like a few minutes based on whoever starts of that, but we have basically a super tight 8-man rotation with 6 Wayne Selden minutes as the 9th man. And I think that's how Tibbs is going to want to do it. Like they're still, you have to think about this team's motivations kind of coming into the season. They thought they were going to be competing towards the top of the Eastern Conference. It's been disappointing so far. I think they're still going to be playing every game like it's a playoff game while they're getting through this phase, because like they're not getting Derrick Rose back for a long time. Like, I think every win kind of counts here.
And I think quickly being out also really helps Kemba's case, because just having so much small guards is kind of why he got kicked out. Yeah.
Also on the returns front, we'll get Jalen Green back tonight for Houston. Will be interesting to see how Houston chooses to integrate him, because they've been playing so well without Jalen Green for so long, still without Kevin Porter Jr. So there's still a lot of available minutes for Jalen Green to kind of slide in here. Who do you think he takes these minutes most from right away?
Sadly, it's my guy Armani Brooks. Steven Silas said pregame yesterday that he was going to start Jalen Green here, so I would assume Jalen Green gets put in that Armani Brooks role. Minutes-wise, I think we put him at 26. Like, they've been ramping him up for over a week now, so hamstrings are always cautious, but there was never really major concern over his hammy. So I think he should be, he may have a shot at 30, but I think 26 is a pretty good number for him. But yeah, Armani's going to take a big hit. And then it's going to trickle down a little bit to Christopher and these other guys. I think Nwaba just goes away. I think they're going to still want to play Christopher. So that's part of it. The Garuba minutes would go away. So it's not like Christopher and DJ Augustine. DJ Augustine's largely unchanged here. But he might cut down a little bit. I think
he could get cut down for Christopher. I think if this was Kevin Porter Jr., I'd feel really confident about that. But just because I don't think they feel super confident with Jalen Green running the point, that they might try to still squeeze out some DJ Augustine minutes. But Christopher played really well in the opportunities that he got, and I think they'd like to continue that momentum, would be my guess. Okay. In terms of potential question marks tonight, there's still plenty on just the injury front alone. We've got Malcolm Brogdon, who got hurt last game, and we're not anticipating we'll be able to play tonight. He's questionable. Their next game is like Sunday, right? So it just seems like a spot to get a lot of potential rest here. And we know, Brogdon only played 8 minutes last game. We know when Brogdon is unable to carry the load offensively, we know Karis LeVert steps into that role heavily, and especially without TJ McConnell. They can play Brad Wanamaker, but they don't trust him as much as TJ McConnell. So the ball's going to be in the hands of Sabonis and Karis LeVert a ton tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we took a prop on Karis because I feel really good about Brogdon. He aggravated his injury. This is the injury he missed on, what was it, Thursday or something, Thursday, Friday, whatever it was last week, to cost him a game there. They said they'd practiced. They thought everything was okay, and then he gets hurt, and they said, quote, determined right away that he couldn't return. He said that, quote, we're obviously concerned, and, quote, we'll have to scramble in his absence. So these are all quotes you say about a guy that are expecting this time. As you said, the schedule just makes it so easy. Sit him out this game, get him at least, close to a week to get over this injury that's, aggravating an Achilles injury is like, oh my God, you got to keep him out. So, fully, as you said, it should be Karis LeVert show. in a dream spot. Just hoping that to hit this over, the Rockets can hang in there.
All right, let's go to the Magic. Another spot where we've got two guys questionable on the injury report, and we are thinking they're closer to doubtful with Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter Jr. We've seen the Magic just kind of, push through. Got a nice win last night for them. Just playing, they've got 10 guys that they had in the rotation last night. They have bodies. They're not really competing for anything this year. These two guys, Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter Jr., are their future, along with some other guys. So it just seems like, why not give as much time as you can for these guys to be fully healthy before bringing them back? That's sort of our assumption here, but what other color would you like to add?
Yeah, so again, basically what we said yesterday, that Jamal Mosley said that they're still in, quote, rehab when they had questionable tags, which is like super weird. And we found out they weren't playing when the starting lineup comes out. Orlando's always really quick to put their starting lineups out. So they weren't expecting them to play. There was no chance they were playing yesterday. But today, back-to-back, maybe a small chance, but I'd be really surprised. Again, just, you're signing Freddie Gillespie, a center, for Wendell. You're signing Tim Frazier for a reason, and you're signing him to fill Cole Anthony's minutes for 10 days. So it seems pretty obvious to me they're not going to play.
Yeah, and hopefully we get that guess right, because it does change things dramatically if those guys are able to play in terms of values and different things there. We've seen Robin Lopez, distributing with 11 assists last game in the double-double. So there's been a lot of value to be had on the Orlando side. We saw Keki go nuts before 6 steals last game too. So definitely one to watch in terms of the injury report. Also on the Timberwolves side, they're without Anthony Edwards still in health and safety protocols, but now you've got Jalen Noel and Naz Reid added to the injury report as well. And they've been decimated with health and safety protocols in terms of depth on the roster. And these two guys are kind of like two of the last rotation guys standing. So what do you think the likelihood of seeing Noel and Naz tonight? And if they're not able to go, what do you think that does to the Minnesota rotation?
Yeah, don't have a read on it. Finch didn't mention it in his post game. So, I mean, they played normal minutes. We saw, Noel kind of play through stuff. So I think he's playing. I think the matchup's crazy because Finch was really disappointed in ball containment with Brunson ripping him apart. And they made that lineup change to basically go bigger because they wanted to put McDaniels on Brunson in the second half, and it kind of worked. They slowed Brunson down a little bit after the big first half. So I kind of think Noel starts here if he can go to really cut down Bolmaro's minutes. Nathan Knight gave him some good second half minutes, and Finch seemed pretty happy. Did call it situational against the opponent, so it's not the best spot for him against the Jazz. So it's real tricky. We're bringing Bolmaro down a little bit. I think Noel, if he plays, his minutes are pretty safe. We saw him not shoot much. With no really non-scoring stats. He was kind of a bit of a letdown yesterday. But I do like Noel's opportunity if he can go. And, we'll just have to see on Naz Reid. If he can't go, it's going to be the Nate Knight show. And then they'd probably bring Chris Silva in.
Yeah, I think that would make sense, especially given this is also a blowout spot, right? Going into Utah, and it's a tough spot to get excited. This is one of the challenges of the nature of what we're dealing with in the NBA right now is some teams are decimated playing teams who are not. And you're going to get a lot more blowouts and a lot more variance on these side of things as well. All right. Some bit pieces for Memphis as well. They got John Morant last game. They were without Tyus Jones. They have Tyus Jones and John Concar questionable tonight. We know Memphis usually likes to play kind of 10-man rotations when they have everybody at their disposal. There's also one of the later games on the slate in terms of, timing. What do you think in terms of if we have Tyus Jones or John Concar available?
Yeah, don't have much of a read, but it's probably not too relevant. I guess it is a little bit relevant because that would maybe help Anthony Melton's minutes a little bit, but they just bring Jared Culver in the rotation for one or both those guys there, so it doesn't really do too much.
Okay. And then there's 3 teams that we haven't seen injury reports from, right? Oklahoma City hasn't submitted, but we would expect Derek Favors on the second night of a back-to-back to probably rest. Again,
there, just like that, right on cue. There he is, rested.
Okay, so there we go. You're not playing anybody from Oklahoma City tonight. They're massive, massive underdogs against Phoenix. So I don't think we need to go too much into that.
How am I not going to this game, by the way, Drew? How am I not going to this?
I don't know, man. Give yourself an early Christmas gift.
Right.
The Milwaukee has not submitted their injury report yet. I don't even know what to say. Oh, is it? Okay.
It just came out, yeah. Sandra's on there.
I wonder if Grayson Allen is on there. So Milwaukee is now doing stuff where in consecutive games, Grayson Allen has been listed as active and not on the injury report, and they've not played him.
Unreal.
And when teams do stuff like that, you just don't know how to project it. Like I can't deal. So I would say we are not out of the woods, even though they released an injury report for guys like Drew, guys like Middleton, second night of a back-to-back here. So just be leery. Unfortunately, Bucks beat reporting is not great. So we usually do not get a lot of good insight and information from them. So
and it's a road game, and I'd imagine probably a lot of the beats didn't travel, so it's going to be pretty bleak.
Yep.
Well, to be fair, it's not necessarily the beat reporting. Like, they're getting asked these pointed questions about it, and they duck them. They ask Mike Budenholzer every time about minutes limits, and he says, "I don't know." So gotta defend the beats a little bit on that one.
Yeah, so we'll see if we get any information there. The Nuggets, who like Mike Malone pulled the plug super early on the game last night. The bench unit got it down to 10 in the fourth quarter, and he just still wouldn't go back to Jokic. They're on the second night of back-to-back as well, obviously. And so really disappointing loss last night. We have not seen an injury report there. I don't think there's too much to be concerned about because they haven't been like ravaged with health and safety protocols of late. But we'll see.
Only one will be Gordon. He was probably going to miss that game that got postponed. I mentioned this is the bad hamstring you hurt in the bubble. Also heard it in January. Hamstring back-to-back. It's a little bit concerning, but as you mentioned, 25 minutes. So they were ready to go. So I think they're preparing for him to play it in this one. Yeah.
All right. I think that'll do it for a large slate of games with a healthy size injury report as well. For those of you that are subscribed to Established Run's NBA Premium DFS content, myself and Andrew Wiggins will be behind the paywall tonight at 5 o'clock Eastern. That is assuming that this booster shot I'm about to run get doesn't derail me. But I will be behind the paywall with Andrew, breaking down the slate, talking about all the DFS implications as well. Mike will be warming up in the bullpen. And don't worry,
I'm running hot, man. I got
don't worry. The flag plants will come in through the chat or through us on the show for Mike because he's been running real hot of late. Shout out to Robert Williams, the Time Lord, last night for a huge performance. Also, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with a huge performance.
Look at my two flag plants were the two top scorers on FanDuel. Not bad.
It's pretty good. So we'll be behind the paywall at 5 o'clock Eastern tonight. For those of you wondering about our Christmas Day content schedule, we're going to try to get all of the Christmas Day related content done late afternoon, evening of the 24th. And then we will just be monitoring and managing projections. It'll be my job during Christmas Day, going through everything as we hopefully don't have to adjust too much in terms of full on games. So I want to wish everybody out there a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. I hope you're out there able to spend it with people you really care about and people you love. And I hope you have a great holiday season. Good luck in your games tonight. We will be back on Monday for the next edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show with myself and Mike Gallagher at 2 o'clock Eastern. Have a great weekend. Have a great holiday. Merry Christmas. See you all next week.